Our first choice here is Bulbasaur. Now, Bulbasaur is a grass poison type. It's the only one of these three that starts off having two types. Now, a starter is going to have at least decent stats across the board, and then it's going to specialize in two stats. Bulbasaur here is going to specialize mainly in special attack and special defense when it's fully evolved. And, you know, that's definitely good, meaning they can do a lot of damage and stand up to a lot of its weaknesses. Next up is Charmander. Charmander is going to specialize in special attack and speed when it's fully evolved. It gains a flying subtype when it's fully evolved, though, so it does get a quad weakness to rock, but in return you get immunity to ground. It's the popular choice, but personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Charmander in the world. Our last choice here is Squirtle. Squirtle is a pure water type. It's going to remain a water type all the way through, so you don't have to worry about gaining or losing any weaknesses. It's also the sturdiest, specializing in defense and special defense. A lot of people like to use it for single Pokemon runs, though, but this isn't one of those. And even though Wartortle's my favorite Pokemon, I don't think I'm going to go with it this time around, because I've chosen it in like 3 previous playthroughs. First up out of the new Pokemon in this route is Caterpie. Really, Caterpie doesn't have anything special about it. Butterfree, it's a fully evolved form, really doesn't have anything special about it either. I mean, it can learn Poison Powder, Stun Spore, and Sleep Powder. Its main use is probably going to be Sleep Powder. But really, there's better Pokemon to put things to sleep, and its type doesn't help it. And on top of that, it doesn't have great stats. So really, I'd only recommend it for a fan of the anime looking for nostalgia. Next up, we have Weedle. Weedle really isn't much better than Caterpie. Their second evolution forms are basically identical. And really, Beedrill really isn't that much better of a Pokemon than Butterfree either. It's got pretty bad stats all the way around, and it really doesn't have any huge claim to fame except for the ability to poison Steel-type Switchblade Needle, and you're only going to find 2 Steel-type Pokemon in the original 150, so it's not worth it either. But it is kind of fun to, you know, make jokes about its classification. I'll show you my hairy bug. Just pathetic is the last one. We have Kakuna here, which is the evolved form of Weedle. Again, all it's going to know when you catch it is hard, and it's not even worth the cash. If you're even going to have a Beedrill on your team, again, just catch a frickin' Weedle. It'll be easier to train. Now, going into Route 1, the first Pokemon you're going to encounter is probably going to be a Pidgey. Pidgey is a very weak flying type. People might recommend getting it for later in the game. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Pidgey, you know, just because it's that generic, weak, normal flying type you get early in the game. But that's just me and everything. There's another flying type that I like much better, which you're going to be seeing later in the LP, alright? Anyway, though, that's Pidgey for you. Feel free to catch one, though, but I personally don't like it all that much. Now, the other Pokemon you get on this route is Rattata. Honestly, it's not that good of a Pokemon. I really just don't like it hardly at all. It does get some good moves later on, like Super Fang, which lower your opponent's HP by half, though, but really, I don't recommend picking up a Rattata for your team no matter what starter you choose. Pidgey I somewhat recommend if you just happen to like Pidgey, but Rattata I don't recommend for anybody. Next up we have Raticate here. Didn't recommend Rattata in the beginning of the game, don't recommend Raticate now, even if I am scared to death of them. Alright, first here on Route 22 we got Spearow. Now Spearow is a flying normal type. It really, I honestly prefer Spearow to Pidgey. It's less bulky though, but it's faster, it's more aggressive, and I think it learns some better moves on top of that, at least in my opinion. And, well, the only real problem is that it's a lot more rare than Pidgey. As you can see, it only appears 10% on this route though, so you're either going to have to wait it out really long, or you're going to have to get one later on if you want one. Alright, so you've chosen Route 17, the short way to Fuchsia City through Cycling Road. Now, there's one new Pokemon you can obtain on this route, which is a wild Fearow. Now, I already use a Fearow on my team, though, so you guys don't need to know what I think of it again. I just think it's a good Pokemon. But if you still haven't picked up a flying type, I actually would recommend Doduo more at this point in the game. Alright? Then we have Ekans here. Ekans is a poison type, of course. Everybody friggin' knows Ekans. Ekans really isn't all that great, at least in my opinion, though. It's pretty average along the board, but really, I still think that there's better poison types out there, and I think you're better off going with maybe a grass poison type, though, because of the double same type attack bonus, though. But, you know, that's just me. If you really, really, really want an Ekans, I don't think you'd be suffering too much if you got one, but I just don't recommend it. Arbok is slow and it's frail, I have to admit. There's better poison types out there, though, but, you know, it's not a bad Pokemon. It learns some good moves, though. It's just that if you're going to use one, just be absolutely sure that you know that anything that hits it with Psychic or Earthquake is going to instantly kill it. This is Pikachu! Everybody's got to know it. It's f***ing Pikachu. Alright, whatever. But yeah, We got, seriously, it's actually a pretty decent electric type, one of the fastest Pokemon you can get early in the game, and it's actually a pretty decent Pokemon. It's also got a really good ability that paralyzes Pokemon when they attack it physically sometimes. It's rare, but if you can get one, I'd recommend it, especially if you got like a Bulbasaur and you're worried about getting hit by flying attacks. It's definitely good to have. Also might not be bad for Charmander to hit water types with. It's really a pretty good Pokemon, honestly. It's rare, but if you find one, I definitely recommend picking one up if you're looking to have an electric type. Now here on this route you can get Sandshrew. Now Sandshrew is a pure ground type and everything though. Even though ground is actually a pretty good type and it has some good attacks within it, there's definitely much better ground types than Sandshrew. Sandshrew is just really, really slow for a ground type. And on top of that, it really can't take special hits for anything. So it's kind of a glass cannon, I guess you could say, but it can take physical hits pretty well. Sandslash is slow, but it's got a really good attack and defense stats. This is exclusive to Leaf Green, so Leaf Green users, you can get this. If you get past its really slow speed, I guess it's not too bad of a Pokemon. I mean, it can use Earthquake and Swords Dance, and that's definitely a plus, though. I do think there are better ground types, though, but this definitely wouldn't be a bad Pokemon if you're trying to be unique. Nidoran female, it's more of a defensive Pokemon than it is offensive. Its Poison Point ability is really good, as you can see right there, as I've mentioned before. This one's more common if you're playing Leaf Green, though, so if you're playing FireRed, I kind of would outrule getting this one, just because it's so rare. But it's a pretty good Pokemon, though, especially if you just Charmander, because it gets a ground subtype later on, and can learn Fighting-type moves to deal with those annoying rock types. But because I already have my Bulbasaur, it's part Poison type, I don't think I'll be picking one of these. Nidorina is more defensive than its counterpart. The only real reason I would suggest picking one of these up now would be if you have FireRed and you wanted a Nidoqueen instead of a Nidoking, but you couldn't get one because it was too rare earlier in the game. Next, we have Nidoran male, the counterpart to Nidoran female, of course. This one's more offensive than it is defensive. It's basically a polar opposite. Just like Nidoran female, it does get the ground subtype. It does get all that stuff. It has the same ability. It's also a pretty good Pokemon, really. I'd recommend this one over Nidoran female because this one actually has better speed. But, you know, that's just what I recommend. This one's more common for playing FireRed like me, though. Next up, of course, is Nidorino. Same thing as Nidorina. I would recommend picking one up if you wanted a Nidoking, but you have Leaf Green. Really same thing. It's more offensive than defensive than Nidorina is. And then here we got the really popular ultra rare Clefairy. Clefairy is actually a pretty good defensive Pokemon, honestly. I like it quite a bit. It's really rare, but if you can find one and you want something that's pretty strong defensively, I could somewhat recommend picking one up. The only issue is that it's kind of annoying to attack with in game, though. It doesn't really do all that much damage in game, but you know, if you can deal with that and you want something to stall, then this would be a pretty good choice, though. Fire-type exclusive to Leaf Green version, which is Vulpix. Now, this is something I think Leaf Green users got a little bit ripped off with, because Vulpix evolves into Ninetales, which used to be a great Pokemon in the original game back when Special was one stat, though, but now all Ninetales is going forward is speed and special defense. Not a very good combination of stats to have. If it had speed and special attack, like it did in the original game, then it would still be a good Pokemon, though, but it kind of got ripped off when special defense was introduced as a stat, so I'm gonna say pass on this one. Of course, everyone friggin' knows Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff is awesome. Well, its Sing ability isn't really one of the better attacks in the game, really. It only has 55% accuracy, though, so I wouldn't recommend it too much. It, in its evolved form, can take some hits, plus you can evolve it pretty dang quick if you catch one right now, because the item needed to evolve it actually is coming up pretty soon. But I don't think I'll be picking one of these up either, though. But, you know, I would not rule it completely. Zubat's a really fast flying and poison type. It's actually, if you haven't picked up a flying type already, I suppose Zubat might be for you. It's definitely one of the fastest ones, and its ability is pretty nice. Golbat is very fast. You're definitely going to be seeing no shortage of these if you're going to be looking for wild Pokemon in here. It's a fast Pokemon, though, but I really don't like its type, and I don't like the moves that it learns. It does have a good evolution, which gets later moves in the next generation of Pokemon, though, but we're not in the next generation of Pokemon, so I don't recommend it, though, but I guess if you want a fast Pokemon, it's not like it can actually stop you. Next up, we have Oddish, which is the FireRed exclusive in this area, as you might guess, with there being a Leaf Green exclusive in this area. Now, Oddish I don't like quite as much. Oddish is more specially inclined, and it's going to be really slow. Like, I mean, you're going to have quite a bit of power, but it's going to be really miserable in terms of speed. I mean it. Like, even when this thing's fully evolved into Vileplume, you're going to be seeing it just going last just all the time. Unfortunately, the option of evolving into Blossom isn't yet unlocked in the main story of this game, though, so you really can't do that. So, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with its speed being terrible. Gloom, which is Oddish's evolved form. I didn't recommend Oddish back then, back when we could catch it out north of Cerulean, and I don't recommend it now either, okay? It's really slow, and they don't have good stats, okay? Especially this, they're really, really slow, and they just aren't worth it, alright? So, I didn't recommend it back then, I don't recommend it now, like I said. Cursed with a horrible type and horrible stats. It has a good ability, as you can see right there, but honestly, its only real claim to fame is the fact that it can use Spore, which is a 100% accurate sleep move, the only one in the game when it evolves, but even when it evolves, its stats are terrible, and honestly, unless those things really, really matter to you, I think there's better things out there, honestly. I wouldn't recommend this thing to much of anybody, unless that's really a big plus for you, though, but you know, I don't think it makes up for the terrible, terrible stats and terrible, terrible type that it has. I'm sorry, Paris, but I just don't think it does. Parasect, as I've said before, is not worth your time because its free evolutions suck horribly except for HMs, and with how rare it is and how difficult it's going to be to catch, I'm going to say pass entirely. Next up, we have Venonat, and Venonat is a bug poison type. Very unique type. I just don't recommend it, though, because of the sheer number of weaknesses that it has, and its stats aren't all that great, too. Plus, as weird as this sounds, its evolved form Venomoth, even though it clearly can fly, it can still be hurt by ground attacks. Yeah, I know, it's stupid. So yeah, I would totally pass on Venonat. I wouldn't recommend it, though. I guess if you want to be unique, though, that's really the only time I'd recommend it, though, but yeah, I just don't really think it's that great of a Pokemon at all. Venomoth, as I said before, I don't really like it much, just because it has a lot of weaknesses, really bad typing, doesn't learn great moves, doesn't have great stats, and the stupid thing is, despite its appearance, it can be hit by ground-type moves. Stupid, I know. Diglett will evolve into Dugtrio at the fairly low level of level 26. It's got some good abilities, you know, as you can see right there, but the thing about Diglett is, once it's evolved, it becomes one of the fastest Pokemon in the game, plus it learns some pretty good moves. It's actually pretty reliable. And you know, you catch it at not too bad levels for this part of the game, and the next gym leader is going to be electric type. No, not for spoiler or anything though, but it's going to be electric type. And, you know, you can find one in here 95% of the time, which is fantastic. It's actually very recommended for this gym leader. It also can learn Cut if you don't have a Pokemon that can learn Cut already, despite it not having anything to cut with. But, that other 5% in here that isn't Diglett, you will run into Dugtrio, Diglett's evolved form. As you can see, you can find it at levels 29 through 31, which I can pretty much guarantee is stronger than anything you have at this part of the game. Having a ground-type Pokemon that overleveled just before an electric gym, I highly recommend it if you have trouble with electric types. If you don't have like an Ivysaur that can resist it like me, if you started with Squirtle, this is something I recommend for you. Unfortunately, you're going to have a shared weakness to grass, but oh well, to each their own. Meowth is going to be difficult to raise at first, because it really doesn't have that great of stats. After it evolves, it gets some amazing speed. It's actually one of the fastest Pokemon there is in the game. Downside, though, is its attack stat is only really average, and it doesn't take hits too well. But, you know, you get some really amazing speed with it, and I actually think it'll fit in really well, though, because I was kind of debating as to what I should get for a normal type, and I think this one fits the bill perfectly. You guys already know how I feel about Persian, so I don't think you need to hear it again. And then next up is Psyduck. Now, everybody freaking knows Psyduck. Psyduck is just awesome. Well, actually, it's not too bad of a special attacker once it evolves. I actually, I guess if you wanted a special attacker, I guess it could kind of do the job, and, you know, if I remember correctly, you're going to be getting a Psychic TM soon, though, so that could actually be good for it. And you can catch it at some pretty decent levels, too, though, so it's really not that bad. Also, as you might notice, on the percentage there, it says Surf. Now, Surf is a move that lets you cross water that we're going to be getting in a little bit. We don't have it yet, though, but if there's a Pokemon you can catch by fishing, you can also catch by surfing. It'll be noted in its bio. Golduck is actually a pretty decent special attacker, as I said before. I mentioned Psyduck before, though, so I don't really have much else new to say about this one. It's just exclusive to FireRed, and it's actually not that bad of a... Next up, we have Mankey, first fighting type you can encounter in this game. Honestly, because, you're going to be coming up against a lot of rock Pokemon early in the game, I recommend you pick up a Mankey if you chose Charmander. If you personally don't like Mankey, that's okay too, though, because there's some Pokemon with some other fighting moves you can get later on. And not too far from now, though, but for now, I'd recommend picking up a Mankey if you got a Charmander. Another plus about Mankey is once it evolves, it becomes the fastest fighting type in the game as of this one. As of this generation, at least, alright? Primeape, in my opinion, is a pretty underrated Pokemon. You can get this if you have either version, of course. Primeape is the fastest fighting type in the game. It's actually quite good as a physical sweeper. It can do a fantastic job doing what it does, really. It's really surprisingly underrated, and I don't get why more people don't use it. Growlithe is the exclusive Pokemon on this route to FireRed. It's got very balanced stats, actually. I like it a lot. It doesn't learn the best moves in the world, though, but it's got at least decent on every stat, so really, it can be physical, it can be special, it can stand up to hits, you know, really, and it's also pretty fast, so I like this Pokemon a lot, plus both of its abilities are pretty good, too. Here we have Poliwag, which you can catch using the Good Rod. Now, Poliwag, I don't really like it too much. I guess Poliwrath's an okay Pokemon, and it's kind of a unique type. It's water fighting. But I guess if you don't want a Poliwag, it might be a good idea to catch one if you want a Jinx, because there's the guy in Cerulean City that'll trade you a Jinx for a Poliwhirl. Tapper is going to be really annoying to catch, because the only attack it's going to know in the wild is Teleport. It's just going to keep teleporting away from you, which is basically the same as running. So you have to catch it in the first turn every time, no matter what. Unless you have some way to keep it from running, which I don't think you would by this point in the game. But if you actually can catch Nabber and get it fully evolved, you get one of the best special attackers in the game, Alakazam. It is amazing at just how good it is. But to fully evolve it, you're going to need somebody to trade with, because it'll only evolve if you trade with them, so that's another thing that's going to be difficult. But if you can do it, great Pokemon. Machop unfortunately requires a trade to become fully evolved, but it's one of the best physical attackers in the game. Its only real weakness is its speed, because it's really slow, but other than that, it's bulky, it can take a lot of hits, and it can do a good job giving hits out. So if you want to get one of these, I'd recommend picking it up now, because you're not going to be able to catch him again until a dungeon that's after you've collected 7 badges. Yeah, 7. Machoke, the evolved form of Machop. Machamp is its fully evolved form, which is a great physical attacker. Its damage is unbelievable. The only thing that sucks about it is, even though it's really bulky and does a lot of damage, it's slow as heck. And to activate its ability, you would need to get it inflicted with a status condition. Shame this isn't Diamond and Pearl, because it gets an even better ability, Diamond and Pearl, but oh well, that ability does not yet exist in this game. But I guess if you really could trade for it, by all means, I guess I'd pick one up if you're still looking for a good physical attacker. Bellsprout, which is a grass poison type, one of the most common dual types you're going to see in the game. It's exclusive to Leaf Green. Now, when Bellsprout is fully evolved, it's going to make a pretty decent mixed attacker. It's going to be a little bit slow though, but it can attack physical and special. It's actually a pretty good mixed attacker. I kind of like it. If you don't have a grass poison type already, it's definitely not one of the worst choices that you could go with. I mean, yeah, it's, like I said, it's going to be really slow though, but you know, it's a pretty good mixed attacker to my surprise. Next up here we have Weepinbell. Like I said before with Bellsprout, if you can get it fully evolved into Victory Bell by buying a Leaf Stone in Celadon City, they actually learn, well, they don't learn the greatest moves though, but Weepinbell's actually a pretty decent mixed attacker, which, like I said, surprised me when I was checking it out for this Let's Play and everything. It actually, yeah, you can use it for physical attacking, you can use it for special attacking. It's actually a pretty good Pokemon though, so if you don't have a grass poison type or whatever, I suppose you could use this one, and having a, you know, something that can't be poisoned is going to be really good for the next gym. Hint, hint. A lot of people underestimate Tentacool. Once it evolves into Tentacruel, it's actually not a bad Pokemon at all. It's got fantastic special defense, it's got a really unique type to it, and on top of that, a lot of people underestimate its good speed. So I guess if you need a water type, or poison type, or both, or whatever, or just a good Pokemon with special defense, I recommend this one, surprisingly, even though people underestimate it because of how common it is. As I said before, Tentacruel has speed that a lot of people underestimate, and it's very, 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 very good at taking special attacks, and, you know, it learns some good moves. So I guess if you are using an HM slave for surfing right now and you want a solid Pokemon to use Surf, I guess this could be your guy. Geodude being Rock and Ground means that it takes ×4 damage to both water and grass, excuse me, which I'm definitely not a big fan of, and on top of that you also need to trade Geodude with somebody else to get it to fully evolve, which makes it a bit more difficult to train if you don't have someone to trade with immediately. So yeah, honestly, I'm not picking up on Geodude. Honestly, I'm not a fan of Geodude myself though, but you know, it's got pretty good defenses though. It's just that I think there's better defensive Pokemon out there. We have Ponyta, and its evolved form Rapidash. They're the fastest Fire-type Pokemon in the game, well, at least Rapidash is. Rapidash, however, is a physical attacker, though, so the really Fire-type moves aren't going to benefit you in that. It learns some other physical moves, I guess you could say, though, but really, it's not going to be a good Fire-type user, because all Fire moves are special as of this game, and it's a physical attacker, though. But if you want speed, I guess this could be a way to go. Slowpoke, as its name implies, it's very slow. Now, as you can see, it has 2 evolutions. One you can get in this game, which is the top one, Slowbro, and the other one you cannot get in the main story of this game, which is Slowking. Now, Slowbro is really defensive, Slowking is really offensive, but as their name is implied, they are very slow, and as such, they really aren't too great. I guess if you wanted a defensive Pokemon, Slowbro might be able to do the job a little bit, though, but they have so many weaknesses. I think they have like 5 weaknesses altogether because they're weird typing, though, so I wouldn't recommend Slowpoke at all. Exclusive to Leaf Green as a counterpart to Golduck is Slowbro. Slowbro is pretty good defensive. It's a defensive wall, really. It's really slow and it's hard to work with in-game. I would really only recommend it for multiplayer. So I wouldn't say picking this one up for single player would be a good idea, though, because it's hard to work with. Here we have Magnemite. Magnemite now being an electric steel type, being pure electric type in the original game. Magnemite, once it evolves, it's not too bad of a Pokemon, actually. You know, it's got a lot of resistances, it's a pretty good electric type. I actually can somewhat recommend this one. Then next up is Magneton, Magnemite's evolved form. You know, like I said, it has a lot of resistances, yada yada yada. Everything that I said about Magnemite basically applies here, obviously, because it's evolved form. Now, Doduo could be a little bit of a step up from Fearow once it evolves, though, because they got the same speed, though, but this thing has a little bit higher attack once it evolves. Doesn't learn as good moves, though, in my opinion. But if you're still having trouble with the Gym Leader and you don't have a flying type yet to use your new Fly HM, definitely wouldn't be a bad idea to pick one of these up, because despite its appearance, it can fly. Then we have Seal. Seal is a pretty mediocre water type. I just don't like it very much. It's just not a very good Pokemon. Then the last new Pokemon that is in here is Dugong. Dugong is Seal's evolved form, which I also don't like this one too much. It's outclassed by Lapras almost entirely as a water-ice type. They learn similar moves, though, but Lapras just seems to have better stats. We have Grimer, and its evolved form Muck. Of course, they're special walls. You know, I like these guys. They're really underrated. Grimer, you can catch both versions. Muck is exclusive to Leaf Green, at least in the wild. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I like Muck quite a bit. It's a really good special wall. If you want some standard special attacks, it's your guy, though. The only thing that I don't like about it is the fact that its abilities are pretty sucky. Ghastly is first evolution in the Gengar family, which is the only Ghost-type family in this entire game. This type is exclusive to them. Ghost types are good against Psychic Pokemon, and they are weak to other Ghost Pokemon as well as Dark, and then, of course, because they're Poison, these are all going to be weak to Psychic as well. Now, when fully evolved, Gengar is one of the best Pokemon you can get for sweeping, and it learns some pretty good attacks, too. So, I definitely would recommend getting this if you want a Ghost-type Pokemon. And then also in here, you can catch Ghastly's evolved form Haunter, albeit a little bit rare, but you can. So, pretty much the same thing about Ghastly. I'd recommend it if you actually want it and everything. It's a pretty good Pokemon, and it's got a unique type and everything, though, so it's kind of cool. Onix, which, as some people know, is Phil's favorite Pokemon. If you don't know who Phil is, then you suck. But anyway, Onix, in reality, even though it's the biggest Pokemon in this generation and everything, in reality, if it was real, it could just beat everything by just sitting on it. Really, it's just not very good. Its only good stat is defense, its other stats are terrible, and you can't even access its evolution in the main adventure of this game. So I'm gonna say, don't bother with this one. Now, Drowsy really isn't all that great, at least in my opinion. Really, even when it's fully evolved, its only good stat is special defense. So, yeah. It was really good in the original game because its special defense stat, you know, was its special stat back when it hadn't been split into special attack and defense. But now, it just has good special defense and that's it, so I wouldn't recommend it for really anybody. Hypno is mainly specializing in special defense. It's not really... I guess it's somewhat of a tank, though, but it's really not that great. It doesn't learn the best moves in the world. There are better Psychic types out there, though, but, I mean, this one's not horrible. You will be guaranteed to fight one of these before leaving, though, so I guess if you wanted a Hypno on your team, you would be able to get one for sure. Krabby, I'm not going to make any jokes regarding its name, though, but it's got some really good attack on it, and it's got pretty good physical defense, though, but it just doesn't learn very good moves. I mean, I guess if you wanted to have a unique water type, I wouldn't totally not recommend this one. It's just that it's a bit of trouble to raise just because it doesn't learn such great moves. And it's a little bit slow, though, but, you know, it's got a massive attack stat and also pretty massive defense stat. It just doesn't have a whole bunch of HP to back that up, though, but it's an okay Pokemon, I guess. Kingler, I can somewhat recommend Seadra, but I really can't recommend Kingler. It's just got good defense and nothing else. It's got some good abilities, I guess, though, but still, just its only good stat is defense, and I still think FireRed users got the better draw, you know, getting Seadra over Kingler, while Leaf Green got, you know, it got screwed a little bit, though. So I recommend Seadra, not Electrode. It was once the fastest Pokemon, and it still remains the fastest electric type to this day. Unfortunately, though, its speed is its only good stat. It's pretty much got garbage everywhere else for stats, and trading a Raichu for it, I think Raichu's just all around a better Pokemon. And you know, its claim to fame is using Self-Destruct and Explosion, when in reality it's actually one of the worst users for those attacks in the game. Execute here, which I don't understand how Eggs are Grass and Psychic, but whatever. I guess Grass and Psychic are good same type attack bonus types and everything. It doesn't have the best stats in the world though, but hey, if you want to be just like the jackass that we were fighting in Saffron City, by all means, pick one up. We have Cubone, which is kind of hard to raise at first. It's also pretty rare. It's gonna have a really good defense though, but that's about it. It learns some great moves though, especially after it evolves. But I guess if you could pick this one up and you still want a ground-type Pokemon, you don't have one already and you want one, I guess I could sort of recommend this one. The only thing is it's not going to stand up to anything special by any means, and it's a little bit slow. But that's about it. And by the way, this part of the commentary was recorded on the toilet. Technology is amazing! You fought a Marowak earlier in Pokemon Tower, but now you have the chance to actually catch one in here. Marowak's got some pretty good moves, I have to admit. Honestly, I prefer Sandslash as a ground type, you know, out of the ground types you can catch in this area. But Marowak's not too bad either. Hitmonlee, which is the more offensive of the two. Personally, I like this one a lot more. It's got, you know, I like its ability Limber. I mean, its other ability Reckless isn't good, though. I definitely try to get one with Limber if you need to just save in front of it and keep resetting over and over until you get that ability. Honestly, I like Hitmonlee more. It's a damage dealer, and its attacks are actually promoted by its stats. Hitmonchan, I really don't recommend as much as Hitmonlee, mainly just because a lot of its punching attacks are still counted as special attacks in this game, and because of that, they end up just not doing very much damage. It does have good defense, though, but a lot of its attacks just aren't promoted by its stats until Diamond and Pearl when the physical special split happens, so I don't recommend Hitmonchan, at least not in this game. My more favorite Pokemon, Coughing! And then, even better, its evolved form Wheezing, which is possibly my favorite physical wall in the entire game. It only has one weakness, which is Psychic. Its defenses are great. Honestly, I love this thing for standing up to physical attacks. So, you know, maybe with Wheezing in here and I'm playing FireRed, this dungeon might not be so bad. Or will it? Fun fact about Rhyhorn is that it was the first Pokemon ever created, but anyway. Rhyhorn here, it's gonna be pretty tough to catch and everything though, but you know, once it evolves into Rhydon, it becomes a very good defensive wall. Like, it can take hits like nobody's business and dish out damage really well. The only thing that's gonna suck though is the fact that it has a ×4 weakness to water and grass, plus it has a lot of other weaknesses that are ×2, so yeah, you're gonna have a lot of weaknesses though, but for the types that you aren't weak to, you're just gonna absolutely wall them. Chansey here has a really good evolution that unfortunately you cannot access in the main evolution of this game, but as you can see there, it's also incredibly rare and ridiculously hard to catch, especially since you can't weaken Pokemon by their HP in here and you just have to throw Safari Balls at them when they're at full health. This Pokemon is ridiculously rare, but if you can get one, it is possibly the best special tank in the entire game. It has ridiculous HP and ridiculous special defense, and its evolution is even better at that. But like I said, can't get into the main story of this game. Tangela, which I do not recommend at all. It is the only pure grass type out of the original 151 Pokemon, which is kind of a shame though, but anyway, Tangela is just really slow and has all-around poor stats, and so for those reasons, I do not recommend it. There's far better grass types out there, and you're probably better off getting a dual grass type in this one, like a Grass Poison or a Grass Psychic maybe. Kangaskhan's a pretty good normal type addition to any team, as you saw Giovanni using it in those fights. I guess if you liked what you saw, and you're somehow lucky enough to get a hold of one, I guess picking one up definitely wouldn't be a bad idea. Horsey, once fully evolved, is a great Pokemon. It's really learned some great moves. Once it's fully evolved, it only has one weakness, which is Dragon, though, but you can't access its last evolution in the main story of this game, though, so I would seriously say pass for now. Now, as you'll see, it says SR, GR. The SR stands for Super Rod, and the GR stands for Good Rod, which Good Rod is actually an item we haven't gotten yet, which is weaker than the Super Rod. Go figure, you can get the Super Rod before getting the Good Rod. In fact, the Good Rod's located in this area after this one, which is so weird. Seadra, I'm not really sure if I'd recommend it. I mean, its evolution, Kingdra, is fantastic, but of course, you can't access it in the main story of this game. Plus, you're going to need a Dragon Scale, which is rare, plus you're going to need to trade it. So, I'm not really sure if I'd get this one. It's actually not a bad Pokemon, it's just that the fact you can't get its evolution in the game is a bit less, makes it a bit less appealing. But it's still got a really cool ability. I mean, heck, it's a water type with Poison Point. I mean, that's pretty damn good for an ability. Seeking Foot! Nah, I'm kidding, I'm not gonna revive that meme. But anyway. Seeking can only be caught using Super Rod, as you see there, but honestly, Seeking's really not that good of a Pokemon. I really just don't like it very much. There's plenty better water types out there. So I'd say pass on this one unless you want to revive a very popular internet meme. Here we have Mr. Mime. There's only one in the game and you can only get it by trading with that guy. Now, Mr. Mime here, he has really good special attack, really good special defense, and he's fast. The only thing that really sucks about him is just that his defense and his HP really aren't all that good. But overall, he's actually a pretty good Pokemon. And, you know, you just need an Abra to trade for him, which Abra's hard to catch though, but I definitely think it'd be worth it if you can do it. Exclusive to FireRed, we have Scyther here. Scyther's evolution cannot be accessed in the main story of this game. Like I said, this one's exclusive to FireRed. It's a very fast Pokemon. I just don't really think it's all that great though in terms of just moves that it gets and things like that though, because a lot of its better moves weren't introduced until later games, so I'm not really sure if I'd recommend this one. But if you really, really want like a good bug type and you're playing FireRed, I guess I won't stop you. Well, not like I could anyway. There's an old man in a house in here that will trade you the only Jinx in the game for a Poliwhirl. You shouldn't have a Poliwhirl this early in the game though, but you know, later in the game when you do get a Poliwhirl, which we'll go over when you can trade it for this Jinx. Now, Jinx is actually a very good special attacker. It learns some great moves like Ice Beam, Psychic, Blizzard, a lot of really great moves, and it's got a fantastic special attack stat to back that up, as well as some good speed. Well, the downside is, because of its weird type, it can't switch into much though, so it's a bit of a glass cannon. So it won't exactly be bouncing back when you send it out. Ugh. Only found in FireRed version, so Leaf Green users, you won't be able to get this. Electabuzz is a pretty good Pokemon. Well, actually, I'm not really sure if I'd say it's pretty good, though. It's average, but I'd say other electric types like Raichu or Magneton would be better picks. But that's just me. It's still not a bad Pokemon, though, and it's got a good ability. Magmar is exclusive to Leaf Green. It used to be located in the Pokemon Mansion in the original game, located now on Mount Ember only. Leaf Green users are the only ones who can get this. It's the counterpart to Electabuzz. It's a pretty good fire type. I guess it's okay. I guess since you guys kind of got cheated on getting Vulpix instead of Growlithe, I guess this would be a good fire type for you. I do have to say one thing about Magmar. Its Japanese name is Boober, and its pre-evolution Japanese name is Booby. I'm not kidding about that, seriously, look it up, it's weird. Exclusive to Leaf Green here, we have Pinsir, which you can buy here. Pinsir is a fantastic Pokemon, I like it a lot, I always found it to be really underrated. It's pretty powerful, it's basically just a less powerful version of Heracross for those of you who played the Gold and Silver versions. It doesn't have the fighting subtype, and it doesn't learn quite as many good moves as Heracross does, but its stats are really similar, and it learns at least some of the same moves. So I actually think this is a very solid bug Pokemon if you're playing Leaf Green. Tauros, also a very good normal-type Pokemon that appears 1% of the time, extremely hard to catch. On top of that, if you can somehow, someway get a hold of one of these, I commend you, and I think it would make a great addition to any team, actually. Well, you know, Magikarp isn't a terrible Pokemon, because when you get it, it knows Splash, which is the most powerful move in the game. Well, no, not really. I wish it was, but it isn't. It actually doesn't do anything. It doesn't learn a useful move until level 15, which is Tackle, so it's going to be really difficult to train until then. In fact, the only way you'll really be able to do it effectively is if you send it out there, and then you switch out to something else, and then let that beat it so Magikarp gets half of the experience. Or if you get, you know, some kind of item that gives it experience and something like that, though, but that's really about it. So it's going to be really hard to train, though, but if you can somehow get it all the way to level 20 when it evolves into Gyarados, then you'll get a really, really strong offensive Pokemon, and it evolves really early, though, so that's a definite plus. So I guess if you ever wanted a Gyarados but didn't feel like raising a Magikarp up from level 20 back at Mount Moon, now's your chance. You can actually catch them as high as level 25 if you got the Super Rod, and, you know, they're not too rare, so, yeah, I mean, it's actually pretty good. You can get... And, you know, level 25 is a pretty decent level for this part of the game, though, so if you wanted a Gyarados, you can get one now. They have fantastic defense, they learn some awesome moves, just all around their stats are really good, and Water Flying's kind of a weird type, though, and even though that electric types are really going to hurt and everything, I mean, having an immunity to ground, that's fantastic. It's actually a very good Pokemon, and like I said, if you wanted one but didn't feel like raising a Magikarp, now's your chance. A Pokemon with a unique type and a ton of HP to boot. Learns some great moves, its stats are pretty balanced other than its huge HP. Its only real downfall is that it's kind of slow. But, you know, it's a good Pokemon, it gets some great types to get same type attack bonus with. It's got good abilities, and just all around, I like it a lot, and it's one of my more favorite underrated Pokemon. Just out to the right of Fuchsia City, you can find Dittos in the grass there as a new Pokemon that appears there. Ditto's only ability is to transform into other Pokemon, copying their moves and stats. Ditto's a very risky Pokemon, and I honestly don't recommend it because of that. It's because a lot of Pokemon carry attacks that would be super effective against themselves, and Ditto's stats before it transforms aren't great at all, so I would say pass on this one entirely. Here is Eevee. Eevee is a special Pokemon that can evolve into one of 3 Pokemon with the use of the Water Stone, the Thunder Stone, or the Fire Stone. Now, the first thing you need to know about Eevee is do not evolve it into Flareon. Flareon is terrible. It's got good attack and nothing else good. It's got terrible defense, it's slow, and it's got no good moves to take advantage of its attack stat. Don't even bother. If you want to evolve it, I would go for Vaporeon, who can take a lot of hits and deal out decent damage, or Jolteon, which is ridiculously fast and learns some good moves. Eevee also does have more evolutions than just those 3, but none of them are obtainable in this particular game. The stones to evolve it are available in the Celadon department store to buy. Pokemon I mentioned so far can be obtained in other areas besides the Game Corner, however this one cannot. This one must be obtained in the Game Corner. This is Porygon. Now, Porygon has an evolution that you cannot normally obtain, and its evolution has really good defense. But really, I wouldn't recommend picking up Porygon for the main story. It's kind of just a trophy Pokemon in my opinion. Because, you know, it's unevolved and its stats really weren't that great to begin with, so yeah, I wouldn't really recommend it in the beginning. I mean, it's got kind of a cool ability, and I guess it learns some alright moves that can change its own type, but it's really just a novelty Pokemon for the story, so I wouldn't recommend picking one up, especially for how expensive it is. Now, you get 2 fossils to choose from. You won't get to use them until much later on, though, but when you do get to use them, they will become Pokemon. Now, this is much, much later in the game, believe me, though, but anyway. The Helix fossil will become an Omanite. Omanite is rather slow, but it's really defensive. Both Pokemon are going to have the same abilities as well as the same type, so you don't have to worry about a thing. In that aspect, though, it's just that Omanite's going to be the slower of the 2, though, but it's going to be more defensive. On the other hand, we have Kabuto, which is faster and more aggressive. Both of these Pokemon also evolve at level 40, and you get them at level 5. Back in the original Red and Blue, you got them at level 20, though, so that's kind of a downfall of how much longer you have to wait, how much more you have to raise them to evolve, though, but whatever. As I said, same type, same abilities. Even though Kabuto's second ability that it can have is a different name, it still has the same effect and everything. If you go back to Pewter City and use Cut to go into the back entrance of the Pewter Museum, you can get an Old Amber, which you can get identified in Cinnabar Island as an Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl is one of the fastest Pokemon in the game. It learns some great moves and is a wonderful physical attacker. Honestly, this thing just sweeps right through teams. If you want to get one, be my guest. Snorlax here is a great Pokemon. The 2 that I pointed out are the only 2 Snorlaxes in the entire game. They are fantastic Pokemon with great abilities and fantastic stats. They have a ton of HP, they stand up to special hits like you wouldn't believe, they do a ton of damage, and they learn some great moves. Honestly, if you don't already have a normal-type Pokemon, this is about as good as you can get for a normal-type Pokemon. Make way for the legendary Pokemon Articuno! Now, Articuno is an ice-flying type. It has amazing special defense. It learns some great moves. And, of course, as any legendary Pokemon, it's pretty good. Only thing that really limits it is the fact that it is ×4 weak to Rock. If you can get past that, it's a great Pokemon. But that is one very glaring weakness. This is the legendary Pokemon Zapdos. Zapdos has amazing special attack. It's one of those powerful special attackers in the game. Unfortunately, when you encounter it, it does not yet know any special attacks, so you're going to have to teach it some. But if you want to train it up and you want to teach it some moves like Thunderbolts, it's going to have some of the most devastating Thunderbolts in the game. Plus, because it's part flying type, you can have Electric without being weak to the ground. This is the last of the 3 legendary birds, Moltres. Moltres is a special attacker primarily. It's fire and flying type. If you want to get this, by all means, be my guest, though, but I would definitely fix the issue of its only offensive moves being fire type when you get it. You're definitely going to want to take care of that. Dratini is a very sought-after Pokemon because it and its evolutions are the only dragon Pokemon in this game. Dragon Pokemon are weak to other dragons as well as the ice type, so it's a pretty good type. The only downside is it takes a lot of levels to get it to evolve, and it's really not that great of a Pokemon for a long time. Plus, for playing FireRed, as you can see, it's very expensive. But it's a very sought-after Pokemon, definitely, and it definitely does have a lot of fuss around it for. Here, if you have Super Rod, it's very rare, but you can catch Dragonair, which is Dratini's evolved form. If you didn't get a Dratini back in Celadon City, Dratinis can also be found in the water, though. But anyway, Dragonair, very good Pokemon. Once it's fully evolved, it becomes Dragonite, which is one of the best Pokemon in the game. Yada yada yada. You heard it before when I talked about Dratini. we have Sentret. Sentret I really only recommend as an HM slave. It doesn't really do much else all that good. Even its abilities are bad. Lediba sucks horribly, okay? Its evolution is known for using Comet Punch, which is basically just another version of Double Slap. It has no good stats. Its name 5-star Pokemon is not very accurate. I would call it more of a 1-star Pokemon. This thing is useless. I cannot recommend it for anything. It is one of the all-time worst Pokemon there is. It's got just terrible stats, terrible move pool, and it's got a terrible type too. I can't recommend it for much of anything. Spinarak, not very good, like most, you know, low-level bug types. Not a very good Pokemon. The only thing I'd really recommend it for is if you wanted to raise it into an Ariados, teach it Spider Web, and have something to keep running Pokemon from running away, because Spider Web is basically mean look for bug types where it keeps foes from running away. But that's really about it. Togepi, when it evolves, it can be quite a good special wall stat-wise. The only downside is it doesn't really get that many moves that lets it be a special wall all that well. It's still totally usable, but there's better special walls out there though, but I wouldn't totally outrule it entirely if you just want to have an anime staple Pokemon to use, I suppose. Natsu, which is really just an average at best Pokemon, not really outstanding in too many stats. And it really just, I don't recommend it as a Psychic type though, because there's many better Psychic types out there. It's just that, it's not bad, it's just that it's painfully average and has a bad type. Leaf Green users get Marill. Now Marill's pretty good defensively, plus its ability, huge power, unfortunately isn't too useful in this generation because a lot of its attacks are still special. But it's not an all-around terrible Pokemon. I mean, it gets good moves, it's got the typical water move pool and everything though, so, you know, this isn't too bad of a Pokemon either if you're looking for a unique water type. Hoppip is really not that great of a grass type, actually. It's grass and flying type, which it's really vulnerable to a lot of types. It's just all around not a very good Pokemon, not really anything setting it apart much from other grass types besides the flying subtype, which gives it a lot more weaknesses, and it just doesn't have good stats, though, so I don't recommend it. Yanma being a pretty generic bug flying type, it does have Speed Boost as a cool ability, making it faster every single turn, which does set it apart from other bug flying types, but it's got painfully average stats and pretty shallow moves, though, so this one, it could be recommended for something unique, though, but I still don't really think it's all that great. Here we have the greatest Pokemon of all time, it's Wooper! Wooper only has one weakness, that's, grass type, excuse me. Wooper's only found in Fire-Red, though, so sorry, Leaf Green users, you suck. But anyway, Wooper's got some pretty good defenses, and it's actually a pretty underrated, wall Pokemon. It's really not that bad of a Pokemon. I actually like it quite a bit. It's easy to get out, though, because it's immune to electric, though, so yeah, I definitely would go for it if you're looking for a unique water type. Murkrow, which is exclusive to Fire-Red. Murkrow is not really anything special. It's got really bad stats, it doesn't have very good moves. It's just another Pokemon for collectors. It's really not really much of anything special. It does get an evolution in another generation though, but that's in another generation, so for now, skip it. Then for Leaf Green users, we have Mischievous. Mischievous is actually not too bad of a Pokemon. Its stats are average at best though, but it learns some really good moves, like you got Perish Song and Shadow Ball. Plus at the time of its of it being added to the roster of Pokemon, it was the only pure Ghost type. That's not true anymore, though, but, you know, it's a pretty unique Pokemon. You can do a lot of cool tactical things with it, you know, Mean Lick, Perish Song, you know, it's got some pretty good strategies up its sleeve, I guess you could say, even if it doesn't have arms. Pokemon with 28 different forms, one for each letter of the alphabet, and an exclamation mark and a question mark. It's really just a Pokemon for collect nuts. And its evolution box says it all. It really just says, why can I not evolve into something that's actually useful? Wobbuffet! Yes, Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet is weird, to say the least. It cannot directly attack in any way. All it's good for is counter-attacking, making it pretty useless in single player. It can be really useful in multiplayer when out predicting your opponent. So you might want to try that though if you aren't playing by competitive rules, but for single player I say skip, multiplayer I'd say it's interesting. Quillfish does not evolve, it stays crappy forever, do not recommend it either. Here we got Heracross. Heracross is, every generation that it's been in has widely been recognized as one of, if not the best physical attacker in the game. This thing tears crap up, okay? It's mildly fast, it's somewhat beefy to special attacks, and its physical attack stat is just incredible. And this thing's ability to use Mega Horn, which is a ridiculously powerful move with no negative effects, It destroys grass and psychic types. It is just so good. Sneasel is an exclusive to Leaf Green version right here. Sneasel's very fast, and it's got some pretty good attack power behind it. It's just that it's not really... Ice is not really a good type for physical attackers, though, so Sneasel kind of is screwed in that department, though. So, unfortunately, Sneasel's not really that great either, though, but it's at least decent. We have Slugma right here. Slugma is a very slow Pokemon, and it's got pretty terrible stats. Even after it evolves, it's just really, really bad. It's got horrible stats everywhere with defense, and it's got like no HP to back up that defense, so this one is not recommended despite how much you're going to be seeing it in this dungeon. Then next up, the second Pokemon you can find here is Magcargo, and as if it wasn't bad enough for Slugma having terrible stats, this thing gets a rock subtype, meaning that it's now weak to fighting, it now has a times 4 weakness to ground, and a times 4 weakness to water, so yeah, it got pretty screwed by that, so not recommended either. We have Swinub. Swinub is... Again, it's not really that great like a lot of the other Johto Pokemon we've run into so far. I don't overly recommend it just for the sheer fact of the number of weaknesses that it has and just the fact that it doesn't have any outstanding traits about it. It does get an evolution that's really, really good in a later generation though, but this isn't a later generation though, so I'd say skip out of it in this particular game. Remoraid can actually evolve into Octillery, which isn't too bad of a Pokemon, but even still I would only say it's average at best in terms of water types. It does get a really cool move called Octazooka, which lowers accuracy and does damage, but it's still not really that great. Exclusive to FireRed is Delibird. Delibird is a perfect example of a Pokemon that I like to refer to as an empty Pokeball, just for the sheer fact that it's that terrible. Delibird it's got an exclusive move that is absolutely terrible. It has a chance of healing the opponent. Ice Flying type is just... It's got a lot of weaknesses, and just on top of that, its stats are just really bad. This one Sneasel's at least decent, but Delibird is just awful, okay? I would not recommend Delibird in any way, shape, or form, but I could recommend Sneasel at least a little bit. Please welcome Mantine. Mantine is a very good special wall type. It's just kind of... It's hindered by its bad type of water flying, but it's got really good special defense and some pretty good HP to back it up. It is actually more of a counterpart to... Drumroll, please. Skarmory. Skarmory is pretty much the physical counterpart of Mantine. Skarmory is a bit overrated in my opinion, though, because a lot of people use Skarmory and forget about Mantine, which, granted, Skarmory does have a better type. It's just that Skarmory, it's very good overall. I mean, it can lay down spikes, it can physical wall, it can throw out attacks. It's a very good all-purpose Pokemon. In other words, it's very super. Phanpy evolves into Donphan level 25. It is pretty easy to catch, and you can get it really close to its evolutionary level. It's a pretty good defensive Pokemon, and it's a good ground type. This is something that I can definitely recommend. It's just a little on the slow side. Larvitar is caught at a very low level, but if you can manage to train it all the way up to being a Tyranitar, one of the best Pokemon in the game, it is simply a raw physical force and a defensive wall. Awesome Pokemon, and it can summon sandstorms upon coming out of the battlefield when it's fully evolved.